Welcome to the 5 a.m. podcast, where we bring you insightful conversations with thought leaders and influencers who are making headway and some waves in their industries and callings. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with someone who's been inspiring and transforming lives across the globe. Our guest today is Marnie Swedberg. She is an accomplished international leadership mentor, media expert, and master of generating those aha moments. Marnie is the author of 14 books, a keynote speaker who has graced stages worldwide, and the host of a #1 ranked blog talk radio show. Her dynamic approach to leadership, life, and faith has captivated audiences in business seminars, spiritual retreats, and everywhere in between. Now, she's not just a speaker, she is one who brings change, helping individuals unlock their potential and discover their unique path to success. But before we roll that intro, please share this with your friends and networks. I know you are going to enjoy this conversation, and your friends will too. So share it with them. There's two other things I'm going to ask you to do before we get this show going here, and that is to give 5 a.m. podcast a 5-star review on your favorite podcast player. And we would be remiss if we did not thank those who had ventured over to buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast and bought us some coffee last week and this one. So we thank you for your support. Now, if you want to join those early risers who have already bought into the mission to support the mission of 5 a.m. podcast, we welcome you to join us as we help others seize their day. Now, let's roll that intro. Marnie Swedberg, welcome to the 5 a.m. podcast.
Michael, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I am excited that we can get together for a little conversation. And as I'm apt to say at the end of most shows to our listeners, think of us sitting in a diner, and as you do, you eavesdrop on the people behind you. Listen in. It's okay. We don't mind. Bring a chair over and invite some friends. And we have a lot of great things to talk about in these next 30 minutes. I'm going to start out right at the top with those 5 levels of personal power, that concept that you have. Can you walk us through these levels and explain how individuals can progress through them?
Oh, I love this topic. So many people don't really think about levels of power at all. Yeah. And if we do think about power, we think about, well, I don't want to get too much because ultimate power corrupts ultimately, But then we think about God, and he is the ultimate power and he is the ultimate good all at the same time. So that cannot be always true. Yeah. So let's go right back to power level 1 is the power level that is just me, I exist. That's it. Just the word me, I'm here. So if you think about a baby is not able to feed itself, change itself, can't do really anything, totally dependent. Yet when that baby starts screaming at 2 a.m., it has a lot of power over its surroundings, right?
That's true.
So power level number 1 is just being here. Just your very presence on planet Earth gives you power that you wouldn't have if you weren't here. So that's power level number 1. So power level number 2 is me plus ideas. And this is where we start having the thoughts of doing something that we haven't done before. A baby sitting up or rolling over or crawling or standing and walking, learning to talk and to listen. We have adults who spend a lot of their time in level 2, ideating, and it's me plus ideas equals level number 2. And that's the ideator, the creator kind of. Then we have power level number 3. This is the power level where we put action in. So it's me plus ideas plus action. Now, this is where things start happening. And I want to tell you a little story. We owned some businesses through the years. One of the things we did was for 14 years, we owned a restaurant. And I really loved to hire 14-year-olds to start with us. And many of those 14-year-olds would grow up with us, graduate, go off to college, come back, work with us over the holidays and the summers when they were home, when we were busiest. It was just a wonderful thing. But sometimes when you brought in a 14-year-old, and I remember saying, I was walking into the kitchen and I told one of them, please go sweep the kitchen. And I walked in and the teen was standing there with the broom, and the broom was going back and forth, barely touching the ground, but there was action happening, but nothing purposeful. they didn't even know how to sweep. And so I had to teach them, no, the goal is to get all the dirt in a pile and to get that dirt pile off the ground. So this is how we do it. So when I mean power level number 3 is action, not just any action, not just putting potato chips in your mouth, whatever it is. You want to do the kind of action that's going to move you forward. And it's when you couple the ideas with the action that you move to power level 3. Should I keep going, or do you want to put some input in here?
Well, I'm actually kind of fascinated with this and interested that like level 1 and 2, you're not even putting one foot in front of the other yet. Wow. You're just, I don't know, sitting, maybe just drawing a paycheck, going to work every day, and that's it. Not even involved in your community. So I'm interested now. You've got me engaged, and I know that I have put feet and breath to my idea.
Right.
But
You've
then
taken
what's
some action.
Yeah, what's the next step?
So this is where it gets really fun, and this is power level number 4. So power level number 4 is we add passion. So this is the people who talk about the power of attraction and, think and you grow rich. And all of these people have understood that the way that God created the world is that things work in a certain way. And so, for example, if you have a magnet and you have a positive and a negative, you're going to have an attraction there, right? Yeah. So what happens is when we have ideas that we're willing to act on, and then we get excited about these ideas, now things are really going to start happening beyond just what we can do. So up until power level number 3, we're basically just kind of on our own, going out and trying to get something done. But when we hit power level number 4 and we add passion, now all of a sudden, everything around us begins to help us toward our goals. That's just the way it's set up. And so let's use the example of a corn kernel. When you plant a corn kernel in the ground, it just lays there. That's its job. It lays there, but it does something else. It vibrates like a corn kernel, and it draws to it what it needs to become a corn plant that produces a corn cob that somebody can eat later on. So as we plant seeds in our minds, in our thoughts, that's the ideation part. We have a thought idea, we start taking action on that. And then when we start vibrating with anticipation of what this is going to be, that's when, that corn kernel does not go out and get the nutrients it needs to grow, but the vibration of it draws it to it. Yeah. And so it's just laying there. That's its action. It's vibrating, but it's drawing the nutrients it needs. And if you plant a pumpkin seed, you're not going to get a corn cob. You are going to get a pumpkin. And with our own minds, this is such an important part to not only do the ideation work and start taking action on it, but also to get very excited and grateful about what's happening and what's going to come, and to employ that patience that a farmer employs, waiting for that crop to even come out of the ground where you can see anything, let alone waiting for it to be time to harvest.
Yes. Now, before we move on, we definitely have to talk about that attitude of expectation. Yep. Some people might call it faith. And one other thing, just to put a pin in that for a second, the book, one of the books that I like the most is As a Man Thinketh.
Yes.
What a delightful book by James Allen. And so to our listeners and viewers, if you have not read the book, As a Man Thinketh, that is an excellent one. And one of the takeaways that fits with what Marnie is saying is about character and control of your character and your mind being like a garden. And there's one statement in there that says improved thoughts equals improved character equals improved circumstances. And so knowing this and realizing that kernel of faith or that expectation, how does that move us on then to the next?
Well, see, that's what's kind of interesting now. And I'm not sure about all of you guys listening and what you think about God or Jesus Christ or anything like that, but I'm just going to go ahead to power level number 5. Because in power levels number 1 through 4, we start the power level with the word me, and then we add something to it. Me, and then me plus ideas and action, me plus ideas plus action plus passion. Yeah. But at power level number 5, we flip that on its head and we start it with the word God. And we say God plus me, ideas, action, and passion. So what this does now, and I love to talk about this if we have minutes, I love to talk about how unique you are. So I say it like this: when God strung together your 3 billion base pairs of DNA, he did it in a particular way. So you are created to do and be what no other person on planet Earth could ever be and do. You're unique. What you bring to the world is unique. So when what you are ideating about, acting on, and putting passion behind aligns itself with who you truly are, how God created you, what he created you to do in the world, all of a sudden, not only do the things on earth coordinate and help you to accomplish your purposes, but all of heaven gets behind you, and that's a big deal.
Yes. And it's not that shouldn't be a foreign concept to us, that if, even from a Christian perspective, if we're told originally one of our purposes was to take dominion over the world that was created for our own personal benefit, it makes us realize that, so there's actually that maybe whether it's an unseen power or something else that comes along and sees, this one is working. This one has caught vision and expectation of something. I need to be subservient to him. Would you say that's correct?
I think that's exactly what happens. And, it's, it's just like driving a car. The car goes where the driver sends it.
Yeah.
The car just doesn't get up in the morning and go drive itself around yet. I guess that's coming. But at this point, we can use this analogy. But then, you think about even the Lord's Prayer when he starts off, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." That's what we're doing here as people. We're bringing heaven to earth. And that is when we align ourselves with how God created us.
Yes.
So it gets pretty exciting. When that alignment gets in place, things get pretty exciting. Can I do an analogy that I like to use? Yes. Yeah. So I say it like this: when you're trying to be something you aren't, trying to be somebody else, do something you saw somebody else do the way that they did it, a lot of times you're frustrated and it's not going well. So I like this little analogy that goes like this: the bicycle thought he was pretty amazing after he'd won the race until he saw a race car go by. Then he was like, I don't even have an engine. And then the race car thought he was amazing because he'd won the Grand Prix until he saw a plane go overhead and he thought, I'm trapped on Earth. And then the plane thought he was pretty amazing until he saw a rocket break into outer space. And he's like, man, I'm trapped here under the dome. And then the rocket thought it was pretty amazing until it saw a shooting star. The point is, you weren't created to be all of those things. You were created to be who you are. And who you are is what the world needs right now. And if you resist how you are, who you are, the way that you're put together, and you keep trying to be like somebody else, doing it like somebody else does it, it'll just be purely frustrating. And the really sad part is that you and us, the rest of the world, miss out on what you could truly bring.
Yeah.
And when you get aligned with how you are built and start just really settling in and getting excited, passionate about that, it changes everything.
Yes, absolutely. And so we were talking about James Allen. So just some of the thought leaders, ladies and gentlemen, like this is truly a tale as old as time, understanding your own personal gift that you have to the world. We had a minister at a church that we went to a long time ago that talked about everyone being unopened gifts when they first arrive on the scene. And some people don't want to be opened up.
Right.
And some people might despise, the day of small beginnings, as they say, but they might also take a look at you and think, what could be wrapped up in that package? Because sometimes the vessel is not what someone is looking for. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is your ABCs of success.
Yes.
Because I feel they're kind of related. Like there's a lot of stinking thinking that gets piped into the brain through the eye gate and the ear gate.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to be careful, little eyes what we see and little ears what we hear, because we have to put a stop to certain things that can affect us. But I want to ask you about your ABCs of success. Could you share a few of those key letters and their corresponding success principles?
Yep. So it's A through E, and I think we have time to share them all here.
Okay.
So I'll start with A. A stands for accept, and approve. So this is when you have something that comes into your life that's maybe something new. Let's say that you get a new position and that position requires an hour commute each way.
Okay.
And let's say that now you've accepted the position and now you have to somehow get your mind to approve the 2-hour a day commute, right? Okay.
Yes.
So you have to find a way to approve that. And how you would do that is you would find a way to make it valuable. So many of the great trainers, like we've been mentioning, say, just turn it into a university on wheels if you're driving, or if you're on a bus, you do it a different way. If you're on a train, do it a different way. But find a way to actually, so you just look forward to that. Like if you got a different job and you weren't doing that anymore, you would just really miss that part of your life. I remember there was a season in my life where I was driving over 100 miles a day as a paramed examiner, and I was going from place to place. But in between, I had 3x5 quote cards, and I would just look down at the reference, and then I had it memorized, and I would review hundreds of verses over the course of a week, and even sometimes within a day or two as I was driving. And so I missed that time. Once it was gone, I missed that time because it was so valuable for my spirit to have that kind of review coming into my head all the time. So you have to accept what you're going to accept,
Sure. Yes.
but then find a way to approve it to make it really valuable.
Wow.
B stands for batch. And this is, I'm going to use a couple examples here. The batch word is perfect because it's a B, and you think of a batch of cookies. Okay, so when you make a batch of cookies, you don't just try to divide the egg into 32 parts or whatever. You make a whole batch at once. It just makes more sense. And when we go to the gas station, we don't put in 1 gallon, come back, put in 1 gallon, you just fill the whole tank. Yeah. And that's what can really make a difference in your schedule. When you begin to batch things together that are of like things. We bought a restaurant in 2002. 2002. We owned for 14 years. And when we bought it, she was at the end of each day, her practice was to go home at night. This is like 11 o'clock at night now. You go home, you do all the bills from the day, you get it ready to take back and pay the vendors the next day, and you pay the employees as you go. And all of it was just so much daily.
Yes.
Well, first I just stretched it out to a week. Then I stretched it out to 2 weeks. And then for the vendors, I stretched it out to a month, and nobody complained. As long as they knew that I was going to pay them and that I was faithful with that, I got out of doing that every night when I got home. I batched it. I just did it once a month. So you can find ways in your life, in your schedule, to batch things together. Obvious things are emails. Don't check it every time you get one. Check it all at once, a couple times a day, and be done. Other things, there's so many ways we can batch, but this is a huge way to save time and to really get some control over your schedule.
Good. And so before we move on to C, we'll do a little tease for Marnie.com. And I think it's Marnie.com/give, right? There's a lot of stuff, or grow, right? Marnie.com.
Yeah. So
grow.
If you just, Marnie is Marnie. And if you just go over there, that's where you can just get a bunch of free resources and trainings over there. There's some, of course, my 14 books you can access over there. There's just a lot of things that are available to you over there. So do check that out. Thanks.
Good. So Marnie's a generous lady. So head over to that website with the extension grow. I want to ask you, I know there's so many roads we could take for the remaining time. But I wanted to ask you if you could share a personal story that illustrates the power of leadership in action, or maybe servant leadership in action.
Well, I have done a lot of study on this. I think Lori Beth Jones wrote both The Path and Jesus CEO. And I think that was really kind of pivotal for me to recognize that I got to choose how to lead. And in The Path, there's so many biblical examples of leaders in there that I really studied. And, you try to find, okay, in my life, what can I do from their lives? Like it's back to that knowing who you are and then fully stepping into that. And so I think for me, it's just been being myself as a leader. Yeah. And that's what I encourage you to do too. I remember especially, so the reason I keep saying restaurant is because 4 years later, we bought a retail store. So there's two very distinct businesses in my mind that were going on almost at the same time. When we bought the restaurant, though, I was advised by many people, do not hire friends, do not hire people from your church, do not do that. And, I just thought, I know that they have good intentions and I know that they got burned by friends or by church people, and that's why they didn't do it. But for us, that just made the most sense in the world for us to hire our friends and to hire church people. And we had just the most fun working with our friends and with our friends as kids. And that's what we did pretty much the whole time with both businesses. And I'm so glad I didn't listen to well-meaning advice that was given based off of someone being burned. And we want to listen to good advice. We want to listen to good counsel. We also want to go with your heart. You won't lead quite like anybody else. I love listening to leadership podcasts and to listening to different leaders, how they lead. But I'm never going to be the person who sleeps under their desk. I'm never going to be the person who, does some of these other things. My husband and I manage very differently. When I was managing, I would, for their 6-month reviews, I would take each one out individually, buy them a meal, and we would just talk at the meal about life. Because anything I had to tell them that needed correction had happened in the moment. There was nothing at that meeting that would intimidate or scare anybody. But I wanted them to know how much I valued their friendship. And so that's how I did it. My husband isn't the kind of person to just go and chit chat with people across the table at lunch. That's not his way. So he had a whole different way. But I think hopefully I've answered your question. And what my point is, you're going to do it unlike anybody else, but find the way that is congruent with the true you, the you that really wants people to succeed, wants your business to succeed, but also wants the people in and being served by your business to succeed.
Yeah. And so that comes a lot from knowing who we are as an individual.
It is.
Know thyself, something like that has been said through the ages of time, know thyself. So if somebody is there somewhere, they realize they're maybe on just the first couple of levels. And probably a good place to start is knowing who you are. How do we get to know who we are?
I encourage you to do some mission vision training. Lori Beth Jones' book, The Path, is my favorite book to recommend. I have a program over at Marnie.com too that it'll take an hour to 2 hours the first time you go through it. But then after that, I use that same program every time we're going to buy a business. Every time I'm going to launch a major initiative, I go through the mission vision planning again for each major project, because you'll find that it matches you, but this is slightly different now because you have a different motivation for doing it, a different goal in the end. So do one for yourself, but then do these mission vision plans for each large initiative that you do as well. And that's going to keep you super focused. It's like the horse that has the blinders on, and you can just go past all of the distractions, all of the bright shining objects. You can just go directly toward what you need to be accomplishing.
Yes. And to take something from my past, working I did a little bit in film and working on film sets. It was a lot of fun. I liked broadcasting better, but of course there's different levels of responsibility and the way things are done. But one of the things that I know TV shows and movies have or had back in the day, and they still do, is they have a Bible. And it's actually written before all the scripts. They have a premise, they have a Bible, and they know the show can never deviate between what is in between the covers. They can never go beyond that. And so that, like it says in Habakkuk, write the vision and make it plain, so that the courier, the runner with the tablets, can just run and go and know that it has been written out and this is our objective. And there are distractions. My wife and I have an example. We were putting on a project and we didn't realize it at first. We started getting these distractions. Somebody says, oh, why don't you add this? Why don't you do this? Could you come over here? Maybe you could give me a critique on my booth and, well, X, Y, and Z. And we just were kind of we stopped. It was stop. This is some dramatic ploy to distract us from keeping our main thing the main thing. And so then as we're working those way through those 5 levels, and we have our self-created Bible or mission statement, how do we, are there some tips on looking for things that might fit within the vision, but at the same time being able to say, no, that's a bone in my salmon steak right here, and I have to spit it out?
I love it. So I'm going to use the restaurant as an example again. So my mission vision statement came to me. I wasn't trying to find it. I was in my kitchen one day, home with my kids. We homeschooled our kids. And I was in the kitchen and 3 words came into my mind, 3 phrases. And I didn't even know what they were. I just wrote them down on a recipe card, stuck them inside a cupboard door in the kitchen, and just saw them occasionally, but didn't know what they were until years later and realized, oh my goodness, that's my mission and vision. And so mine is I exist to encourage women, provide them with practical help, and turn their thoughts toward Jesus. So that's why I'm here. And I'm so excited to have such a clear vision. So when my husband wanted to buy this restaurant and have me run it, I said, I just don't know if that lines, that doesn't seem, because I was writing books, for women to encourage them and even spiritually encourage them. I host Calm and I speak and I write songs and things like that, I was kind of more like fit my idea of that mission vision statement. So when he asked me to run the restaurant and we were going to buy it, I just was like, I don't know, I need to really pray about that. So I prayed about it and God just showed me, providing a busy mother with the option to, it was a takeout restaurant. So we would make the food, they'd take it home and eat it. So to provide a busy mother with the opportunity to have a meal to serve her family tonight is both practical help and an encouragement. And then turn their thoughts toward Jesus. I thought, well, I don't know what to do about that one. And so, but what we did is we just played Christian music in our store. And then whenever, we would, we didn't have a policy of saying God bless you or anything like that, but we would bless them. And sometimes if it was a quiet afternoon, I can't even count how many times this would happen. There's a dead zone in the afternoon at restaurants where you still have some people coming in, but it's not like the rushes. Yeah. And sometimes a woman would come in and she'd have tears in her eyes or she would just look distraught. And I would just go and sit with her for a little while. And we would talk and sometimes get to pray. It ended up to be exactly within my mission statement, even though it seemed like it couldn't possibly fit when I first looked. So I always say, just hold everything in an open hand. You have the reason we have rules and fences and laws are to protect us, not to inhibit our freedom to accomplish what God's called us to do. Yeah. Just believe that, you are created for a purpose and that you get to do everything you're created to do as long as you get on board with it. Yeah. So if whatever it looks like it's holding you back from that, really just say, no, that can't be right. And then if something looks like it's outside of that, just stop long enough to ask and to, really research it a little bit deeper. And you may find that even though it looked at first glance like it wasn't part of your life, it may be the perfect thing for the next stage.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so we're going to be wrapping up here soon, ladies and gentlemen, but we love to read. We love to talk about books. And as I've already mentioned at least once or twice, Marnie has 14 titles, and she obviously has authors that she likes. So we don't have a book club, at least not yet at 5 a.m. podcast. But Marnie, I'm going to ask you if there's one book of your 14 that is on your mind right now that you think, I think that this would be really good for somebody who's listening. And then the other one is, can you name an author or maybe a book title too that you've really learned from?
Yeah, sure. So I think the first one that comes to mind right now for this audience is Flow Through Vessel, which is, if you imagine a straw, instead of us coming up with what's in the cup, we're actually created to be a straw. And we submerge ourselves into all kinds of things, into, as a man thinks, into the Bible, into all kinds of things. And whatever we're submerged in, the most, or when someone comes into our life, when they drink out of our life, that's what they get. And I always say, I love it that I can give you the best I've got, but what I really want to give you is I want to give you Jesus. So I just say submerged in Jesus. And when people come into my life, they get Jesus instead of my own best I can give or toxicity, whatever that might be. So that's Flow Through Vessel, talks about all kinds of different ways that you can let God flow through you. And it's just a wonderful way to live. It's a super free way to live. And then as far as authors, this is kind of a funny one to come to mind right now, but it's the one that's just really in my heart. So I'm going to share it. Robert Morris, Beyond, what is it? Beyond Blessed, I think it's called. Okay. And, this particular pastor has been in the news recently because he made a terrible choice when he was a teenager. And it just came out, and he's a pastor of a mega church. But that book, Beyond Blessed, he talks about the principles we've been talking about today, except from his own completely different perspective. And it really did change my life to read that book and to just understand the generosity that we are equipped. We are built to be generous. So we're built to be grateful, but we're also built to be generous and to share everything we can with other people, not to the point when we are, devastated or whatever. But it's RES to me. I receive, I enjoy, I share. Do it again. Receive, enjoy, share. And that's how we're built. So that would be another book author that I could recommend.
Well, I know we could talk for hours.
This is fun.
I am sure. It's been a great conversation so far, and it really runs the gamut. Even I'm going to have to go back and listen to this one a couple times. But just to start out with James Allen and to think about other of his contemporaries, those late 1800s, early 1900s must have been an amazing time with, Florence Scovel Shinn or
I love her
Charles Hanner, Emmett Fox. The list is wide of that transformative thinking of understanding creation and how God set everything in motion. And so many of us, we might see a garden that needs to be planted, but we don't know the first thing about which seeds to plant or how to prepare the soil. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to go over to Marnie.com and look at the resources that she has, because I know that many of you are going to be blessed by going over there and just being able to renew your mind to what is possible for you and your family. And so I'll say it one more time, Marnie.com/grow. Marnie, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your insights.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
Yeah, it was great. We will absolutely have to do this at least 3 more times.
Well, we got to get through the ABCs at least.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's good. Well, thank you so much, Marnie. And thank you to our viewers. We absolutely appreciate you being here and eavesdropping and listening in on this conversation. It was wonderful. And if you haven't already, please help 5 a.m. podcast grow. Share this with your friends, and even send a link of Marnie.com to some of your friends who need some information and some resources and just have a different bit of a mindset. They'll think you're nosy, but that's okay. That's what friends are for. So we know that there's people that need to hear this message, and we'll move along, because I want to ask you for a 5-star review on your favorite podcast player for 5 a.m. podcast. That helps the algorithms and all the other pixies and doobly-doos that are floating around in the ether. Thank you for that. And I would be remiss if I did not thank all of our friends that venture over to buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast. We appreciate all those cups of coffee you buy for us last week and this. Keep at it, because we love drinking coffee and all of that good stuff. Thank you for your support of 5am podcast. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for being here today. Remember to seize your day and get up and catch those sunrises and sunsets. I'm Michael Klassen. Thanks for being here.